Welcome. Good start of this new week. October the 31st, last day of October. We are also less than a month away from the next expansion. Now, a few days ago, I have introduced you. I tried to explain to you a little bit how is the open world going to be in Dragonflight, what are you supposed to do, particularly with an eye towards players who might not have been that interested in the profession system, in engaging with things related to professions. So instead, for today, I am going to give you a TLDR. I'm going to try to make it much clearer about what are you exactly supposed to do with this new profession system, what do you need to do to keep up with the profession system. Is it going to be grindy? How many things do you have to keep track of every week or even every day? How much of it is going to be locked behind time gates, etc., etc. Just to try to give, a better idea of the next expansion for players who are not in the beta or players who are in the beta but couldn't be bothered to look into the profession system. I think it's quite important. I think it's actually very important because professions is the most changed, the most turned around system we have had since the last time we've gotten a change of this magnitude, which was the change to dungeons with Mythic Plus, which at this point was basically half a decade ago. I know, that sounds horrifying, but unfortunately such is the passing of time. Now, professions. Let's try to make this a quick video for once, izen, and not the usual 25-minute slog. Profession starts with a new thing for the next expansion, which is going to be stats, statistics to improve your effectiveness at crafting. You have multi-craft, which is very simply the chance to craft extra items when you complete a craft. This is obviously just limited to crafting materials and not to the actual finished items. You want to be able to craft a BOE sellable ring and then multi-craft 4 of them. Okay, the multi-craft only works for materials, small stuff, potions, that type of stuff. Then you have crafting speed. This might be for elite min-maxers that might want to craft 7,000 pelts from leatherworking or something like that. Otherwise, it doesn't have too much use. Then you have resourcefulness. This is for the poor friends. This is the chance that you have to get a discount, to get back some of the materials you used to craft the stuff. That's basically what it is. Obviously, in case you were hoping for some mega lucky procs, resourcefulness is only going to give you back sellable items, so the base stuff, not the very rare, epic, time-gated type of stuff. You can't get that one back. Then you have the most important one outside of skill, which is inspiration. Inspiration is the chance that you have to craft something with extra skill. Now, why is skill important? Skill is the most important one, of course, because it is what is going to impact the quality. That's the other change that we have in Dragonflight. Each and every item will be able to go up to 5 quality levels, and then for the materials, for the reagents, for the extra additional things you can put to the craft, it's only up to 3 quality. Now, quality is very important because the higher the quality, the better the item. If it's a piece of gear, it's straight up more item level. If it's a potion or a flask, it's just straight up more stats or straight up stronger effects to the item. Now, skill in Dragonflight starts at level 1 when you learn the profession and then caps at level 100. As a matter of fact, every single recipe in the game even caps at 50 skill. You don't even need to go all the way up to 100. The reason why you need to go up to 100 is because the recipes are going to have a difficulty level. Even if you learn them at level 50 skill, they're going to have a much higher difficulty level once you want to craft them at higher and higher quality levels. For example, the currently, best piece of gear that you can craft for leather workers is the Lifebound Cap, which has a 340 recipe difficulty to get at quality 5, even though your skill caps at level 100, which means to get to 340, you need to find 240 points worth of skill somewhere else. That somewhere else is, of course, in your pieces of gear, in your items, in your profession gear you can equip yourself, and then in the skill tree for your profession. Additional quality will then be added by the quality of the materials and the reagents you are using in the craft yourself. So if you're trying to craft an epic helmet and trying to get it to quality 5 to have the highest item level, you can't try to craft it with a quality 1 leather. a quality 1 pelt and a quality 1 hide. Your skill level will be simply way too low to reach quality level 5. They want you to craft with high quality stuff to get the high quality reward. The optional reagents can give you some better stuff, some cool stuff, like for example missives. You can add missives to a craft to guarantee certain secondary stats, but adding a missive is also going to add recipe difficulty. You can add other optional reagents, and the more optional reagents you add, the more recipe difficulty you're going to get, because it's going to make the craft harder. Which means the majority of your efforts when it comes to profession is going to try to get as much knowledge, as much profession knowledge you can, so that you can spend as many skill points as possible to gain as many stats, to gain as much skill as possible, to get the higher, to be able to get to the higher quality level crafts. Now, at the moment, knowledge points for your skill trees are, as scientists describe them, a clusterfuck. They can be obtained from a whole set of different ways, many of which are going to be either time-gated or they're going to be a one-time thing. The one-time things are, for example, one-time quests and one-time treasures, much like one-time treasure rewards from Zareth Mortis or from Cortia. You know, the usual stuff, where you load up handy notes, you do the whole tour of the zone, going from icon to icon, get all the secrets and all the treasures and the caches and get the rep, like you used to do in Zareth Mortis, for example. It's gonna be the same thing in Dragonflight with one-time treasures for knowledge points. Same goes from one-time quests, it's just gonna be a few extra rewards as freebies, and lastly, one-time rewards for first-time crafts. TLDR, every single recipe you have in your profession will award you with 1 knowledge point every time you craft it for the first time. So this is again somewhere in the realm of the 40 to 50 knowledge points that you can obtain by simply crafting every one of the possible recipes you have available. Then you have the repeatable stuff, which is going to be profession quests. You're going to be getting 2 profession quests once you reach level 25 with your profession, and then 2 profession quests once you reach level 50 skill in your profession. So that's 2 quests which used to be happened bi-weekly. Now the last reset, it actually stopped being bi-weekly, but maybe that's just a bug or a mistake by Blizzard, so not too sure at the moment. But with these quests you get 3 knowledge points per quest. Then you have the rep vendor. That will offer you up to 30 knowledge points, 10 times each, but the price of it, which costs artisan's metal, one of the BOP currency you earn throughout the game, is going to increase in cost. So it's going to be 100 the first time, and then 200 the second time, and then 300 the last time. The first time requires you just to be at 25 skill level. The second time is going to require you to have the equivalent, sort of the equivalent of revered reputation, and then the third time, what a surprise, to get the equivalent of exalted reputation, to get the last 10 knowledge points. You then have another time gate with the draconic treatise. This is something that I think it's the inscription profession that can craft this, and it's BOP. So it's bind on pickup, which means once again it's something to encourage you to use the crafting order system to order this treatise once a week. Once a week you get 1 point from this item. Lastly, and this is the one we know the least about, is the Dragon Shard of Knowledge. This is something that you will be introduced to once you get into this little cave and talk to this master artisan, and tells you that you can gather these Dragon Shards of Knowledge. At the moment you can turn in to this guy up to 3 Dragon Shards of Knowledge a week, which will give you between 1 to 3 knowledge points every time you turn them in, as well as 25 artisan's metals every time you turn the thing in. So the TLDR, assuming that the quests for professions are still bi-weekly, is going to be getting roughly 12 skill points from the bi-weekly quests, getting about 1 skill point from the treatise once a week, getting 3 to 9, depends on the RNG, from the 3 dragon shards per week, and then the one-time rewards of the treasures, the one-time quests, and the crafting bonuses, plus the 30 points that you can get from the reputation vendor. Now, you might think this is very little, because when we go and look at the profession trees, so how many skill points do you actually need? Okay, you just told me how many I can gain every week, but how many skill points are there to to unlock in the profession trees? Well, you know, the average profession has somewhere in the realm of 650 to 700 profession skill points required to unlock everything. So the TLDR is that it's going to take you roughly 7 months to unlock everything in your profession tree, if we go by this amount of knowledge that you can obtain. It looks like a long time, that's true, it looks like it's quite grindy. However, many of the skill points in your profession tree are not needed whatsoever. For example, of these 700 points, 200 in leatherworking are going to be for leatherworking crafts, and then 200 are going to be for mail gear crafts. So if you don't care about crafting mail stuff, for example, you can already toss 200 skill points in the bin because you won't need them. Also, you can go one by one. For example, it's going to be 160 points to unlock all of the 8 different armor pieces for your gear as a leather worker. So 20 points for the helmet, and then shoulders, chest, bracers, gloves, belt, boots, and pants. If you want to start your first craft, if you already know your first craft is going to be a helmet, then you can simply put the other 140 points to level up all of the other armor pieces on hold as you get your materials for your helmet. So yes, the crafting points seem a lot for you to be earning somewhere in the realm of 20-ish knowledge points per week when you know you need 700 in total, but it's supposed to go up as you go along in the game, I'm assuming. I still don't know if it's enough, if it's a little bit too little of a reward every week. Also, many of these are going to be gated, and if they're not really going to require any grinding, right? The dragon shards are seemingly more like treasures than actual grinding. The tree ties is simply something you buy, basically, from the auction house once a week. It's very similar to basically just buying a Vantus rune for the week, basically. That's just it. And then you have the bi-weekly quests, which are going to be, 2 to 4 quests every week. So it's not really that time consuming. So without putting too much effort and without making it too grindy, every week that goes by you will get more and more knowledge points from these activities to level up more and more of your skill tree. You can already go online, of course, from multiple sites. Usually you can just head over to Wowhead to have the full completed profession skill tree for you to try out and to see where you want to go with your first, your first focus, what you want to focus on first with your profession. But it is certainly not going to be grindy in game because of the stuff being time gated or simply not being very time consuming itself. Now, to disperse the possible worries about the crafting order and about whether or not with the crafting order players will simply be able to spend gold to just buy the epic item level gear without really having to interact with the profession system, this image is pretty much all you need to know about crafting orders. The 2 things in red are the 2 things you cannot ask the crafter from your crafting order to provide them for you. Those 2 things need to be provided by the one who is asking, the one who is submitting the crafting order. And these 2 things also happen to be the most rare, the most difficult to obtain, and the most time-gated to obtain out of all of them. So crafting orders have absolutely nothing to do with any idea of pay to win, any idea of just buy stuff with gold, because these 2 things, the spark of ingenuity, will be gated weekly, supposedly. We don't know how much gated, but at the very least, just from the first initial quests, is basically gated every week. And then Primal Chaos is going to be bind on pickup, and you won't be able to trade it, and you will have to enter activities in game to earn it yourself. So that's what's not gonna make it possible for crafting orders to just have players with tons of gold to completely bypass the profession system and just buy the stuff straight up. So the situation right now is as follows. You learned your profession, you started. As you level up to, for example, gather some flowers, like the little hippie you are, start leveling up your alchemy, you get to level 25, you start unlocking your first profession quest, and then you get to level 50 in alchemy, you unlock the second profession quest, you get all of the recipes available because they cap at level 50 skill, there is no more available, even if you can go all the way up to skill 100. All of the recipes stop at level 50, you're gonna be missing some 15, some 20 recipes because they are gated behind some professions and some other types of rewards, and then you start going out in the open world and getting those knowledge points and making sure that every week you're getting the knowledge points that you can get in a week. you will have noticed a few things that are still missing from this acquiring of your profession, essentially power. We already talked in the video about the open world, how the Spark of Ingenuity will be coming from a gated weekly-ish quest, so you don't have to worry about too much about this. It's gonna be quite simple to obtain and fast. The Primal Chaos is the one that requires perhaps a little bit more grinding. We're still not sure exactly how often will this drop, because we know it can come from world quests, for example, and should also come from Mythic Plus and from the raid, but we still actually don't know exactly and precisely. The thing, or rather the things that will take up your time, or rather will stop you from even using your time, are the Primal Infusion or the Concentrated Primal Infusion. These are the two of the options of your optional reagents. As I said, you have other optional reagents to add to the pieces of gear, like the missives to guarantee yourself certain secondary stats, but also these two things. These are the two items you need to set the item level of the piece of gear to heroic item level, heroic raid item level, or to mythic raid item level, the lowest possible. And then if you manage, after you add this optional reagent, if you still manage to get the craft all the way up to quality 5, then it's going to be the highest item level. It's going to be a 10 item level gap between quality 1 or quality 5. This is the one that is the most confusing, because we still don't even have it in game. It's still not even available, it's still not even known precisely how it's going to work. We do know you can earn Primal Focus and Concentrated Primal Focus from activities, and we know that once you have 10 of them, you can fuse them with 100 Primal Chaos or 150 Primal Chaos to create the Primal Infusion to get the item to heroic item level, or the Concentrated Primal Infusion to get the item to mythic raid item level. We also know that Blizzard told us this is the item that can come from high rated arenas and high rated battlegrounds, from high mythic plus level and from mythic raiding. But we don't know. We don't know how much of it, we don't know what's the breakpoint, for example, of Mythic Plus keys, we don't know if it's farmable, spammable, if it's gated, for example, to 2, 3, 4 or 5 per week, or if it is not. So that is the last bridge, the last gap for completing your crafts, because this is what will make pretty much every single one of your items wanted. You know, if you don't have these two things, all of your crafted stuff for gear is worthless. It's complete trash. It's going to be between LFR and normal raid item level. It's going to be at Mythic Plus 2 level, right? It's going to become very, very outdated by like 2 weeks into the expansion. So this is what you need to get your big dick Chad crafts, and for the moment we don't really know too much about it. And it is what will pretty much decide whether or not it will make the chasing the profession, you know, top tier crafts very grindy or not at all. Because at the moment, as we just saw from the knowledge, the profession knowledge you can earn to put skill points into your profession trees is not really grindy, is not really time consuming, it's quite simple. Of course, it might start getting more and more grindy as you want to play, for example, multiple characters with multiple professions, but not that much, and still not nearly as much as something as simple as AP, Artifact Power or Azerite Power grind. Still, it could possibly become more grindy if, of course, we add, for example, that now the Primal Focus or the Concentrated Primal Focus can drop at a 20% chance from Mythic Plus keys. And you can get up to 5 of them per week. So now suddenly, with a 25% chance per key, and you need 5 of them, you start getting into the realm of needing 25 different Mythic Plus keys to get 5 of these items every week. So it's that is going to decide how grindy the entire system is going to be. Just by looking at how many of the other things Blizzard has kept more time gated, it's very unlikely this reward is going to not be time gated at all. That's very unlikely, but we never know. We never know with Blizzard. Also, it might be a little bit annoying, of course, to some players who wanted to continue their profession, you know, crafting without having to enter high level content. But in this case, these items are exclusively needed for high level gear. So every other thing, whether it's a toy, a pet, a mount, or some cosmetic stuff, that is not going to require this specific set of items, the primal focus or the concentrated primal focus. If you don't care about high level content, then you should also not care about this particular material only being available in high level content, because that is only used to craft gear for high level content. So it should be pretty self-contained within that activity for players who enjoy that side of the game. Now, with this being said, we have gotten our recap for how professions are currently working in Dragonflight. Once again, I have betrayed myself, and I did indeed do once again another video that is way too long, but I guess this was required to try to explain the many changes to the professions in Dragonflight. I would still enjoy just a tiny bit more grindiness in the open world when it comes to professions. I think I'm not requiring some 3 to 4 hours every day of grinding, but at the moment, you know, if you just care about professions and you don't really care about the cosmetic stuff available or the reputation related stuff in the game, then it's somewhere in the realm of 2 hours, not every day. 2 hours bi-weekly, so 2 hours every 3 to 4 days, which is not that much. It might still be, of course, the sweet spot for some players, maybe wanting to play multiple characters. That is gonna make it quite fine overall. Of course, to finish, let's remind everyone that everything I just told you about is still going to be limited to profession by profession. So every single one of these things you want to obtain, you want to gain, for example, the profession knowledge that you earn on every character is going to be individual. So it's not that you will have to choose where do you want to spend your weekly knowledge, either in blacksmithing or in leatherworking. You are gonna have different points for different specializations, earning them at the same time. You won't have to decide essentially between one of the two. You can go and move them up, level them up side by side at the same time. So with this we can stop because it's really getting way too long for today. So thanks of course as usual to everyone who has enjoyed this video, but in particular to all of my patrons for being a big help and a contributor to myself and this channel in providing wow content to all of you. You can support in other ways, not including the spending of cash, which is liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing of course to the channel itself. And lastly, for more social interactions, you can follow me on Twitter as well as subscribing to my Patreon right at these two links. With all of this said and done, we can now leave each other. Thank you guys again for watching, see you guys soon, and in the meantime, once again, my gift for briefness has failed me. This video has gotten even longer than I thought it would. Not good.